Welcome to Tuesday. It is April 30th, 2024, and we are looking at OLC 4.0 Term 2B, Class 10, Assignment number 13, and then Compound and Complex Sentences. And crazy old Google's signed me out. It's so strange. I've been working on Google literally all day long, but, unfortunately, I have to switch computers when we go over here to the studio. So it doesn't recognize me. Hang on a sec. Okay. So send in your work to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Please include your full name, course name, assignment number, and name. And if there is a rough and a good draft, please, please, please label which is which. I'm on Facebook and on YouTube with capital G, capital P, ERCY space, capital WAHSA. You can email me a question, jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. You can also call me when I'm in the office, 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. I'm here from 12 to 7, from Monday to Thursday. I'm in the studio right now, so you want to talk about assignment 12 or 13, I'd be happy to discuss it with you, 1-800-465-7144. Okay, today's work, we understand how to make compound sentences, learn about subordinating conjunctions, learn about using subordinating conjunctions to create complex sentences, review the format of a news article, understand how to revise a piece of writing, practice marking an essay to have a sense of the marking scheme. Okay, so conjunctions. Conjunctions are just a way to join words, phrases, or sentences. And there's three main types of conjunctions: coordinating, subordinating, and correlative. So the coordinating conjunctions is always this 7: for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. You can connect items at the word level with coordinating conjunctions. Tonight we are eating turkey and mashed potatoes. Becky and Susan are coming over to watch movies. He was handsome but mean. I would rather swim or read on a hot day. You can also use coordinating conjunctions at the phrase level. The new kitten chased the red laser pointer and pounced on the pretend mouse. She skated with a great deal of speed, but without much precision. I like to read in the park or at the coffee shop. I cannot pretend to like your new boyfriend, nor his odd roommate. Okay. We also use coordinating conjunctions at the sentence level. When we do that, we are creating what's called a compound sentence, which is basically just two sentences joined together. Okay. Each simple sentence is also sometimes referred to as an independent clause. An independent clause has the same criteria as a complete sentence. It has to have a subject, a verb, and be able to stand on its own, like it makes sense on its own. Some examples might be things like, I love to go skiing, but I hate skating. So each side works as a sentence on its own. I love to go skiing is fine. I hate skating. And then we join them with the conjunction but. The trees are growing nicely and the flowers are thriving too. And each side is a complete sentence. He did not get time to finish planting the garden, nor did he get finished fixing the steps as he had promised. We could go to the new movie at the mall, or we could go ice skating at the arena. Different conjunctions have a different meaning. And is probably the most neutral one where you're just kind of joining the two concepts together. But and yet are both showing contrast or opposition or an argument. Let me think here. Pop back for a second. For is showing you a reason. Nor and or kind of work together. Or is choices, nor is negative choices, and so is another one that shows reasons as well. Okay. Hang on. Just gotta get to the right thing. Okay. So going on to subordinating conjunctions. This is only a short list. I know it's a lot longer. There are a lot more subordinating conjunctions, and there's a lot of subordinating conjunction phrases, okay? And these can only get used to join clauses together. I wrote that and I'm still feeling suspicious. We'll see. So things like than, rather than, as much as, whether, whereas, after, as soon as long as, before, by the time, now that, once, since, until, when, whenever, while, who, whoever, whom, whomever, whose, whosoever. Doesn't come up very often, but it does come up. If, only if, unless, provided that, even if, though, although, or even though. Those are some of the most common ones. So to be able to use subordinating conjunctions correctly, you kind of have to know the difference between a dependent clause and an independent clause. So any type of clause always has to have a subject, like the noun or the pronoun, and then a predicate, which is just a verb or other words that are telling what's happening. An independent clause can stand on its own as a sentence. A dependent clause has a subordinating conjunction at the front of it that creates an incomplete thought or clause that needs another clause to complete it. Okay, I'm going to just say incomplete thought, make it a little bit easier. Now, these don't have to be at the beginning of the sentence, but you can see here's the subordinate conjunction unless he brings the money. The thing is with this sentence, you can see it's showing a condition, but we haven't told what the original statement is. Like, I can't pay the bills unless he brings the money, but I don't know what could happen. I can't go to the movies unless he brings the money. I don't know. If she says yes. So that's another subordinating conjunction. Before you put in the eggs. Before is our subordinating conjunction. Once you finish the car. Since you're already mad. And you can see all of these have that feel of the sentence isn't quite finished. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense by itself. So when you are adding an independent clause to this, you can put it after the subordinating clause, or you can put it in front. It doesn't really matter. So here I've added some independent clauses to the dependent clause. Unless he brings the money, I can't buy the groceries. I am going to marry that girl if she says yes. So this whole thing becomes our dependent clause. Sometimes they call it a subordinating clause, which kind of makes sense because you have a subordinating conjunction there. Whichever one works for you. I find that word kind of hard to say and remember, but sometimes some people works. Before you put in the eggs, make sure the pan is hot. So before you put in the eggs is your subordinate conjunction. We need to mow the lawn once you finish the car. And, oh, needs a period at the end. Since you are already mad, I might as well tell you I am the one who broke the vase. Okay. So all of these are sentences that have kind of a two parts to the sentence, all right? All right, so looking at these, there's all of these have two parts. Which part is the dependent clause? And the hint is look, oops, hang on, there we go. Look for a subordinating conjunction. Okay. After the game was finished, we went out for pizza. So that comma is kind of giving you the halfway point. We went out for pizza is fine on its own. After the game was finished is our dependent clause because of the word after. I did not remember to buy the milk, although I had written it on the grocery list. Now there's no comma here because the subordinating conjunction comes second. And when it does that, it just kind of works naturally with it. So you don't need the comma there. Since he was not there, I was quite upset. And again, you've got your comma there, which again is a big hint. Probably the subordinating conjunction is in the front if there is a comma there. I will give my best effort, even though I am tired. And there's no comma there, or there is, but in a really strange spot. Okay. I will give my best effort, even though I am tired. Even though I am tired is your subordinating clause. And I will give my best effort is your main clause. I was not satisfied with my performance in the dance competition, even though our team won first prize. So even though our team won first prize. Now, normally we do not necessarily need a comma in front. I think there's a comma here because the sentence is so long. It kind of gives you a little bit of a pausing spot. I saw a meteor overhead, comma, while I was waiting for my ride to pick me up. Okay, now this is one where you wouldn't necessarily need the thing. While I was waiting, but the while is your subordinating conjunction, which means it's the beginning of your subordinate clause. I went to the snack bar, although I was already full from supper. Oops, and I'm sorry, I don't know why these things have little odd belt balls here. All right, so this one definitely has the subordinate conjunction and the subordinate clause in the back. Oh, can you get away with not having the comma there? You can. The comma doesn't bother me though. Sometimes it looks weird or doesn't make any sense. So a lot of these subordinating conjunctions are showing you a relationship between the two sides of the sentence. So causal relationships just means one sentence is causing the other sentence to happen. So as, because, in order, so that, now that, since. Granting concessions like, oh, I'll let you do this thing even though, right? Or although, as, just as, though, whereas, while. Specifying conditions. That's where you say something, but you're adding a little bit of a condition, right? It could be a condition where like it doesn't matter, or it could be a condition where it's very specific. Even if, in case, provided, unless. Telling the place, where or wherever. Signaling temporal. Temporal is a fancy word for time. Okay, so in these ones, we're showing that the two things are related in time some way. After, as soon as, oh, as long as doesn't belong there. Before, once, still, till, until, when, whenever, or while. You could see that as long as would mean there's like a measurement relationship there. Setting up comparison. So you could do here as though, as long as wide as short as heavy as. Those would all be subordinating conjunctions. And you can also set up contrasts. Contrasts are where things are opposed or kind of in conflict to each other. Though, whereas, while, or although. Yeah, see, I don't know about creating concessions, but you know what? There may be somewhere it would work. Okay. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. Okay. So here we've got two simple sentences, and we've got a way they want us to convey the relationship. And they want us to use a subordinating conjunction that would join those two sentences together. The soldiers laid the bombs, they could find hiding spaces. So they want us to join it by place. So there only was a few of by place. The soldiers laid the bombs wherever, maybe there's only one E, wherever they could find hiding spaces. And see, when I do this, the second sentence now has to have a lowercase instead of a capital because it's become part of a bigger sentence and it's no longer the first word in a sentence anymore. I will work part-time. The baby is due in June. I will work part-time until, no, yeah, no. Since the baby is due in June? I'm not sure. I don't like that one. Once the baby is due in June. Doesn't quite make sense still. I'm not sure what was supposed to go there. The plants died. The dogs kept digging in the garden. So that one I would use cause and effect. I would just use because. Because is probably the most common cause and effect conjunction. Because the dogs kept digging in the garden. Comparison. He woke up refreshed. He had not been working for 2 weeks straight. Comparisons often use like or as. He woke up refreshed as if he had not been working for 2 weeks straight. Oop, not J. Hey. Contrasts. Even though he wanted to move, his wife was comfortable in their old city. That one's pretty easy. All I really need to do is change that one to the period to a comma and change the capital H to a lowercase h, and it works all by itself. Because even though actually is my contrast. Probably was supposed to take that out, but I forgot. I will make you a nice supper. You pay for all the groceries. So conditions. On what condition will I make you a nice supper? If you pay all the groceries. If you pay for all the groceries. I had a friend I used to do that with. She didn't like to cook, but she would happily pay me to buy the groceries and cook for her. Granting concessions. I will let you borrow the car. You didn't remember to put gas in it last time. So a concession. I will let you borrow the car even though you didn't remember to put gas in it last time. So change that period to a comma, even though you didn't remember to put gas in it last time. So one of the things for these, it isn't just like a way of joining things. It's a way of showing relationships and connections between the two sentences that gives more information to your reader. That's one of the reasons why we use complex sentences, okay? All right, so we are moving on to assignment 13. Assignment 13 is sometimes a bit of a confusing one for people because it's basically us rewriting assignment 12 and creating a final draft for that. And a lot of people really struggle with the rewriting stage. And I get that. I totally understand why that is, but it is the best way to improve your writing. Okay. If you never touch or change a single thing that you write down, if you like, the moment you write it, that's it. You can't touch it. It's golden and can never be erased. You're going to have problems improving your writing because revising or changing words or changing sentences is the best way to improve your writing. Okay. So before you move on, I talked about this last day, before you move on and do anything in this assignment, make sure to either take a photocopy or take a picture of assignment number 12, okay? Before you do any revising or any editing. And the reason is because, first of all, you want to have a clean copy that you haven't touched. Hopefully you've handed that in to me because that way I can give you some advice or some ideas if there's anything that's like quite wrong with it that needs to be fixed. Also, you then want to have a separate copy that you can do a whole bunch of changes on. Fix your spelling, fix your grammar, add some sentences, all those kind of things, okay? And once you've done all those kind of changes and additions, you are going to give that to me, and that gets 10 marks. If you forget to give that to me, which a lot of people do, oh my gosh, there goes 10 easy marks, okay? Then after you've got that marked up copy, you're going to go over it and produce a final nice looking copy that's error-free. It should include your headline, your date, and the graphic from your final copy. Make sure you check the checklist, which we're going to talk about again. For this one, you want to make sure that if I looked at assignment 12 and assignment 13, I could tell right away which one is assignment 13 because it's better. It's longer, it's more interesting, it's got more details. It should be really, really obvious to me which one is assignment 13. If I look at the two of them and the only thing difference is like, oh, you fixed one spelling mistake and maybe one period, then you haven't done enough rewriting, okay? All right, let's look through how to do this assignment. So let's pretend this is my clean copy. There's no real mistakes. This is what I handed in to the teacher for assignment 12. Youth given a new start. That's my headline. I'm not going to really need quotations there. September 3rd, 2024. Green Star Lake Chief and Council is pleased to announce the return of a local youth who had finally been released from custody after 18 months in juvenile detention for arson and burglary. The youth arrived by plane today, accompanied by probation officer Frank Williams, and will be under the supervision of his gookum. Deputy Chief Ryan Loon explained, "We are always happy to have our youth return back to our community. Everybody deserves a second chance." However, others in the community expressed some anxiety over the return. One resident, who declined to give his name, said, "I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't believe people ever really change." Okay, so that's the clean copy. This is the part that is worth 10 marks, Oh, no, hang on a second. This was your assignment 12. The next part is worth 10 marks. Hang on, sorry. Then I go through it and I fix things. I make sure I fix any spelling errors or grammar errors. I add more details. I especially look at punctuation marks and quotation marks because those are kind of tricky. So this is the one that is worth 10 marks, right? It isn't my good copy. Yours would probably have a lot more scraping out. I can't really do that without making mine just look unreadable. So what I did was I crossed off things I was going to get rid of, and I put things in red that I was adding, okay? I'm going to make it slightly smaller just because it's trying to fall off the page a bit here. There we go. Okay. Youth given a new start, September 3rd, 2024. Green Star Lake Chief and Council are pleased to announce the return of a local youth who had been released after 18 months in juvenile detention for arson and burglary. The youth arrived by plane today, accompanied by probation officer Frank Williams. The youth was originally arrested and charged in the burning of the band office last year. So now that's my lead sentence. I would want to check, have I got all my information? Is it about, have I got the who? Yeah, the youth is returned. I haven't given his name because typically in stories about youth, they don't release the name. Who is the youth? What happened? He's being returned from juvenile detention, how he's arrived by plane, where he's going to be at the airport, when, today, why, his time is done, and we added on that he was originally arrested and charged last year. In a phone interview, Deputy Chief Ryan Loon said, "We are always happy to have our youth return back to our community. Everybody deserves a second chance." He went on to report that many youth are able to stay out of trouble once they return to community. Several counselors confirmed this statement and expressed optimism about the youth's return. However, others in the community expressed some anxiety over the return. One resident who declined to give his name said, "I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't believe people ever really change." Several parents of students who attend Green Star Lake High School did not wish to go on record, but did voice some concerns about his influence on others at the school. He will be under the supervision of his gookum Martha as his parents are deceased. The probation officer said, "I have worked with this youth for a while. He keeps his word. I know he wants to make this work and will try hard. One of the conditions is that he must attend school regularly. The principal, Mr. Johnson, confirmed that the youth had been registered to the school and that he has a meeting set up with him tomorrow." So remember that the format for a newsletter is the inverted triangle. So up top is your most important stuff. The middle section should be kind of important details. And then the next part should be less important details. So the part about his probation and the meeting at school, it kind of pads out the story, but it's not really important to understand the story. And then I would hand in my final draft, which is out of 20 marks. Okay. Now there's no guarantee you're going to get 20 marks 100%, right? But if you meet all the criteria, you probably will get somewhere between 16 and 20. But you do got to make sure you've met the criteria. Well, how do you know if you've met the criteria? Let me tell you how. I was waiting for you to ask me that question. Here is the original checklist for the original news report in assignment number 12. The headline, you need to have a headline. It should be short, should capture the reader's attention. There should be a date. Appropriate who, I should know what, when, where, and why is happening, and it should be correct and make sense. How should help demonstrate your understanding of the event. The quotes should be thoughtful and appropriate to the event. There should be a considerable level of detail to demonstrate your understanding of the event and that chapter. Sometimes people are handing me in assignments that are so vague, I can't tell if they've even read the chapter. That should not be the case, right? I should be able to read it and go, oh yeah, they've read this chapter for sure. Okay, here is an example of the rubric. This is a slightly revised rubric from the one that is in your unit. It's not significantly different. I just kind of a little bit more specific. Okay. So this assignment is worth 20 marks total. That means each one of these categories is worth 5 marks. So if you got level 4, you could get between 4 and 5 marks for each one. Okay. The first category is knowledge or knowledge of the event in the chapter. Limited knowledge is D. Some knowledge is a C. Considerable knowledge is a B. And thorough knowledge is an A. Thinking inquiry. That's where we're looking at selection, organization of facts, created or used interesting quotes, a relevant graphic, a unique headline, limited evidence of thinking skills, D, some evidence of thinking skills, C, considerable evidence of thinking skills, B, and excellent evidence of thinking skills, or A. Communication, full sentences, proper paragraphs, grammar, okay? This is the part people often think I worry about, and it is there, but it's not everything, okay? Limited use of appropriate writing skills, some use of appropriate writing skills, considerable use of appropriate skills, and thorough use of appropriate skills. The last one is application. Application here, this is where I'm looking to see if you wrote a news report. So sometimes people write me a summary and they might demonstrate really great knowledge of the chapter, but really poor ability to write in a news report. Okay. So a news report should have a headline, the date, it should have the lead, it should be written in an objective tone, third person POV, there should be quotes. All those kind of things are what add up to a great news report. Okay, so revising stage. All of this assignment, it's all about the revising stage, okay? I personally think this is the most important stage, and yet it's the most misunderstood stage. A lot of times students think it means copy your work in neater handwriting or type it up nicely. But no, that's not what it means at all. Revising is where you look over your rough draft and see how you can polish up to make it even better. There are literally hundreds of ways you can improve even a short essay, and we will be talking about them throughout the course, okay? I am going to mention a few of the biggest ones for right now. Okay, here is my example, by the way. Here is one person's story, and they've changed 2 things. Okay, that person hasn't revised, they've just edited. Okay, editing is where you do this little nitpicky stuff. Okay, the other example here is, oh, look, they typed it and it looks beautiful. I'm not going to lie, it does, but they didn't change anything. And if you haven't changed anything, then you haven't done the revision stage. Okay. Here's the original, and here is our new one. And you can see there's quite a difference. I'm going to read them so you can hear the difference. The first one says, this is my news story about chapter 1 in the book, Jimmy Comes Home. Jimmy is on the plane flying home, but he does not want to be there at all. He gets scared when he sees the RCMP and the police at the airport. His probation officer is able to calm him down, but Jimmy is convinced that he's not really welcome here and that they are looking for a way to send him home. Okay. And then here is my revised version. Officials stand at the airport waiting for a community youth to arrive back home. There was some delay in disboarding, which a pilot later reported to be due to the passenger refusing to get off the plane once he saw the police officers out front. Now, I haven't changed everything because I haven't had enough room there, but here are some things I've changed. I've revised the format so that all the important stuff is in the very beginning. I've changed the tone so it sounds a lot less like a summary of a book and more like a real news story. And I tried to limit myself to facts a reporter would actually know. right? A reporter doesn't know your thoughts and your feelings, so they shouldn't really be in the news report. Have I followed the news article format? Okay. Have you answered the questions who, what, where, and when? Usually, why or how might also be answered, or it might be the next one. Why or how might be in the lead, or might be in the second paragraph. Your tone should be very formal, right? Not like you're talking to a friend, but like you're talking to a police officer almost. Have you written from a reporter's point of view only and not included anything he would not know unless someone else told him? Have you put the most important information first, and then items of medium importance, and then finally items of lesser importance? Okay. Now, is your meaning clear? Often we have a really clear idea in our head of what we meant, but sometimes the words we actually wrote don't convey it very well in our sentence. So one easy way to check this is read it out loud. A lot of times our eyes miss what our ears won't, and we will hear the mistakes that our eyes missed, okay? So another thing to think about is some common problems that are easy to fix are if you're vague. Brian was upset by all his problems. Well, what problems? You fix that by adding details. Brian was upset because of so many things, his failed exam, his pregnant girlfriend, and now his parents were yelling at him. Okay, that's much more detailed. Repetitive or redundant. In other words, you're saying the same thing and over. So, example, in my opinion, in my belief, he should have gone home. Those two phrases mean the same thing. Just get rid of one of them and then you're fine. In my opinion, he should have gone home. Too many pronouns, so you aren't sure who is being talked about. After he told him about the affair, he was mad at her. Whoa, there's a lot of people here. Who are the he's? Who are the hers? I would want to fix this by using their names at least once. And if there's any chance of confusion, use a name each time instead of the pronoun. After Dave told Pete about the affair, Pete felt mad at Susan. So I replaced all the pronouns there because it wasn't very clear. Sentence fragments. Always check for sentence fragments. Every sentence has to have three things: the subject, the predicate, and it must be a complete thought. If it's missing any one of those things, it is considered incomplete or a fragment. Fixing those are pretty simple. You just have to add the missing part to the sentence. So let's say you had a sentence that said, went to the store. Well, what's missing? The subject. You haven't told me who's gone to the store. So that's easy. I just add a subject. Went to the store. I went to the store. Or he went to the store. Whoever it's supposed to be. The old red truck. What's it missing? It's missing a predicate. There's no verb and there's no idea what's going on. So I would add a predicate. The old red truck got stuck in the mud. After I go. After I go is an incomplete thought. There is a subject, I, and there is a verb, go, but I don't know what's happening that's after I go. Like, so after I go, please lock the door. Okay. So now the sentence is complete and expresses a complete thought. One really common time that people create sentence fragments is when they're trying to create emphasis. And the tricky thing is this happens all the time in novels and it happens when we do messenger. But in academic writing, we don't use incomplete sentences to create emphasis. So here's an example like, I never should have gone there, period. Not with him. But not with him, although it's very emphatic, does not have a subject and does not have a verb. So it cannot be a sentence on its own. You can phrase it differently and make it part of the main sentence, like, I never should have gone there, at least not with him. Or you could try using a dash. I never would have gone there, dash, not with him. You could also use an ellipse to set it off. Here, the ellipse kind of sounds like you paused to think about it. I never should have gone there, not with him. Sounds a little more sad and regretful. Okay. The other time I see people making incomplete sentences is when they're trying to create examples. And often they put the statement in one sentence and then the example in another sentence. And it often doesn't quite work. So here is an example of how that sounds. We love to go out in the bush and do outdoor stuff, period. Such as fishing, canoeing, having campfires, hunting, and things like that. Those examples are fine, but they just need to be joined on to the main clause or sentence. One way to do that would be with a colon in front of the list. We love to go out in the bush and do outdoor stuff such as, colon, fishing, canoeing, having campfires, hunting, and things like that. Such as isn't really, it doesn't have a verb, it doesn't have a subject, because it's all over here, right? It's all part of the first sentence. So just join it up and then you are fine. Now, the other big mistake is run-on sentences. I think I probably see these more than anything. And I think part of it is just because of how much we use Facebook and Messenger these days. A lot of times we don't really use periods with those. I even catch myself doing this one all the time and have to kind of check for it constantly. In academic writing, we need to make our sentences clear by using a period. Usually the type of run-on sentences I see, there's one that is called a comma splice error. And it's when somebody uses a comma between sentences instead of a period. I was glad to try going back to work, comma. It was a chance for a new start, comma. I can't wait to finish, comma. Then I can get a promotion at work, comma, or period. That's really more like 4 sentences, although maybe I could put them together to have 2 interesting sentences, but it's way too much to have as one big sentence. One big thing is simply replace the commas with a period instead. So the commas each become periods. This one could become a period as well. Here we go. Let's see this. Finish. Okay. So I was saying we could make it all into period into complete sentences, but if you look at that, there's a problem there. Then I can get a promotion at work. Then after what, right? It's a sequencing word that's meant to be joining. So I kind of have to join it to the part in front. I'm going to kind of bring it down to show you. I can't wait to finish, comma, then I can get a promotion at work. So that one has to be joined with a comma, right? But the whole thing doesn't have to be. Okay. I can also fix it with a semicolon. Remember that we've got sort of 3-ish sentences here that have been kind of jammed into one. So we have to be kind of mindful of that. You can use a semicolon to separate 2 sentences that are complete in themselves, but related in topic. Remember when you do that, the beginning of the second sentence should be a lowercase letter. I was glad to try going back to school, semicolon. It was a chance for a new start. And then I put a period and I just did our second sentence. This one we already kind of fixed last time and it's fine now. Here is another way we can fix the first sentence by using a semicolon where I did have a comma. Okay. This one is kind of more general. I'm gonna take this one out just because we've kind of done this already. Well, no, maybe I better. A lot of times people join things with and then and then and then, but we've kind of fixed this already, so there's no real point. If you find yourself using and then more than once before you have a period, then you've used it too many times. It should only happen once. Okay. Yeah, here's the original for that one. I'm gonna take this out. Okay, because we've kind of fixed that already. Okay, after you've done all the revision, after you've looked at all the possible mistakes, looked at where you can add details, looked at where you can add more interesting quotation marks, then you can look at the editing or the fussy stuff, okay? There is an acronym called CUPS that we often use to help us remember what to check. And that stands for, the C is for capitalization, the U is for usage, the P is for punctuation, and the S is for spelling. Okay. So capitalization. I've kind of gone to town here and really listed all the different places that we have capitals. The first 3 or 4 are probably the most important ones, but the other ones come up every now and again. The very most important one is the beginning of names and the beginning of a sentence has to have a capital letter. When you write the word I, it should be a capital I, not a lowercase. The first letter of a name for the month or the day. For titles like Mr., Mrs., Ms., Dame. If you were in Britain, you might have things like Sir. For the name of a street, right? The name of a business. The title of books or movies or games usually have capital letters. The names of places such as towns, cities, reservations, provinces, states, countries, continents. The name of a body of water, such as the Atlantic Ocean or the Detroit River or Abraham Lake. Abram Lake, right? For monuments or buildings that have specific names, such as CN Tower, Massey Hall, Victoria Inn. For the names of airports, train stations, or bus stations, if they have a name, they don't always, but sometimes they do. For the names of parks, not every park has a name, right? But sometimes you'll see like a little sign if it's a local park that'll have a name, or big parks like provincial parks will have a name as well. And for the names of natural landmarks such as mountains, canyons, valleys, and deserts. Again, not every single one of those will have a name. A small one might not, but bigger ones usually will have an actual name. Okay, usage is kind of a catch-all phrase, and it just means any kind of grammar error. Please keep in mind, everybody makes grammar errors from time to time. I consistently find errors in my own work, especially if it was work I rushed through or if I got distracted partway through. So don't be bothered or feel bad or feel negative about yourself in any way. If you find usage errors in your work, it just means that now you know enough to be able to catch them. That's great. That's improvement. One common mistake to look for is subject-verb agreement errors. This is when a subject is plural, but we've used it with a singular verb, which is wrong. We want a plural verb if we do it. Or the subject was singular, but we used a plural verb. This is most likely to happen with conjugations of the verb to be, which in present tense would be am, are, and is, or in past tense would be was or were. So here are some examples. So these pronouns are singular. In other words, they mean one person, you, he, she, or it. When you're doing these particular pronouns, you would use is for the present tense or was for the past tense. He is cold. He is sad. It was cold. I can't say he am sad. That's not grammatically correct. Or he are sad. That doesn't work either. There's one kind of unusual one, which is the pronoun I. It is singular, but it does not go with is. It goes with happy. With am. Basically, because with an I in front, I is kind of tricky to say. You end up saying something more like eyes, right? So they switch it to am, so it's a little bit easier to say with the word I. And then these pronouns are plural. We, they, and sometimes you. You can be singular or plural. And we would use are for present tense. We are sleeping. Or were for past tense. They were sleeping. Now, I can't say they was sleeping. That doesn't work because was implies that should be a singular noun. Any plural nouns would be treated in the same way. One of the things that gets confusing is sometimes what happens is we've changed a sentence from singular to plural and we change the noun and we forgot to change the verb. That's really common. Or there are some words that imply a group, like the word people. I can't say people is eating. Now, people all by itself is a plural word. I can say people are eating or people were sleeping, that kind of thing. So that's one of the ones that's kind of tricky is when a noun is already plural without the S, and that can confuse people sometimes. So here are some examples of incorrect sentences, which I was going to change with you, but honestly, we are getting a little bit short on time. So we'll do like one. People is mean sometimes. I should cross off the mean, which I don't have the time to, and put instead people are mean sometimes. I don't want the is. Okay. Basic punctuation. I think this part's pretty easy, but If you're using a command or information, use a period. Strong emotions, use an exclamation point. If we ask a question, we use a question mark. Clues that a sentence is a question would be it starts with the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, or how. Some other really common question words. If you see these particular words as the first word in a sentence, there's a really strong chance that sentence was a question, like are, is, am, was, were, do, did, have. It might also start with a contraction like weren't, didn't, haven't. Like, haven't you already given him $20? Question mark. Commas. I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about commas. Commas can show up in a lot of different places. We talked about the big place they shouldn't happen, which is between two sentences. But they do get used to separate words in a date, separate words in a list, separate words in an address, like the street gets separated from the city, which gets separated from the province. We also use it to separate adjectives. There's multiple adjectives in a list. And then this stuff we kind of talked about at the beginning of the term. Sorry, punctuation marks. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about this. Is probably the last thing we'll get to. When you want to quote the exact words somebody said, you need to put beginning and ending quotes around their words like this. Opening quote, I couldn't wait to go to the concert. Closing quote. Remember yesterday we talked about 66 for the beginning and 99 for the end? And then we often include a tag, which tells the reader who is talking and how they're talking. So we could say, John said, comma, the concert is tonight. We usually put a comma after the tag if it's introducing the quotation, but if it came at the end, we wouldn't bother. Do I have, yeah, okay, hang on a second. I'm going to point it this way. Hang on. I feel like I had this. Oh, wait, where did everything go? La, 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 okay. Oh, somehow I ended up on another page. I don't know how I did that. There we go. No, why does it keep doing that? All right. I was going to show you if we said the concert is tonight and John said came at the end, then instead of using a comma, you'd have a period because it's the end of the sentence. That's all we're kind of doing. Here are some examples. Pick me up at 8 o'clock, comma, Beth said. Are you coming? Mom said. Now, here we would normally have had a period here at pick me up at 8 o'clock, but we don't put one there because if we did, it ends up looking like that's one sentence and Beth said is a second sentence and it just looks weird. So we kind of substitute the comma for the period. We don't do that if it's a question mark or an exclamation point. We go ahead and use it because people seem to realize it's not as confusing. Oh, we did that already. Hang on a second. And did that already. How have I ended up there? Okay. My apologies. Okay. Quick reminder, dashes are used to define a word, introduce a list, provide further information, and provide emphasis. Colons are used to show dialogue, emphasis, or to clarify books. Semicolons are really useful. A lot of times where people are using commas, they really need to use a semicolon. Okay, if you're trying to separate two sentences, a semicolon is your new best friend. If you're editing for spelling, keep in mind, spelling programs do not catch every single mistake, okay? They will catch some, but they will not catch certain types. If a word is spelled correctly, but it wasn't the right word that you were trying to use, it's not going to notice that, okay? It won't tell you it's wrong because it's still a real word. The other big area is where if it's a homophone, which is a word that sounds the same as another word, but it has a different meaning and spelling, but it's still a real word, so it's not a spelling mistake. So the three most common ones I see are two and two, there, and it's and its. We talked about that at the beginning of the year, and I've got some little explanations there. If you know that you're commonly confused on those, always check them when you use them in your writing. And then after a while, they'll get easy and you'll know for sure. So in the real world, publication could mean anything. You've shared it in some way. For me, all the publication means that you've sent it to me and said, hey, here is my final copy. I'm ready for you to mark. So that is the rubric that we talked about. Here is, yeah, we have just a little tiny bit of time. We're going to do a demonstration marking of the article. I'm going to like mark in front of you. What is good and what is weak about this article? Jimmy attempted to steal bingo money and then he burned down the band hall in frustration when he was unable to find it. Jimmy tried to explain that Gary was part of it too, but the police officers didn't listen. Jimmy is now returning home after 18 months in juvenile detention. He feels nervous and started yelling on the plane, "No bloody way, they're searching my body." Jimmy thinks they're trying to catch him with drugs. Okay. Am I showing a good knowledge of the event in the chapter? No, not really. I'm only showing a very partial amount of information here. So I might give that a 2. So it passes, but it just barely passes there. Okay. Oh, wait, 2.5. My apologies. 2 would be a fail, actually. Okay, thinking and inquiry, selection and organization of the facts, interesting quotes, no quotes, graphic, nope, no graphic, headline, nope, no headline. Oh no, this person has not done a great job on this stuff. So 2.5 again. Communication, full sentences, proper paragraphs, and grammar. Okay, there is paragraphs. The sentences are mostly okay. There's a problem right here at the very beginning. That should be fixed. The grammar mostly seems okay. So that one I would probably say is a 3.5. Okay. Now, does it sound like a newsletter? I'm sorry, news article. Have I included a headline? Nope. Date? Nope. Does the lead have all the most important information, including the 5 W's? No, it's kind of hard to tell what's the most important here. Have I used an objective tone? No, not exactly, because I've started talking about his feelings and stuff, which I wouldn't normally do. I have included a quote. So it's got some elements. So here, this person got, let me think here, 5, 5 and 6 is 11, 11.5. They got 11.5, sorry, out of 20. Okay. Just kind of did that so you had an idea of how I'm marking things so you kind of know what you're looking for when you do stuff yourself. If you have any questions about this, go ahead and contact me. I'd be happy to answer. I know this is probably kind of the one of the newer, harder assignments that we're doing. Thank you so much for showing up. And tomorrow we will talk about assignment 14 and 15, I believe. Okay. And hope you have a good evening.